We've been hearing stabbings were rife across London transport yesterday, with a manhunt underway for an attack on Kennington tube platforms and a 19-year-old arrested after he allegedly stabbed a man on a train in broad daylight in Beckenham.
Brazen. Now, 3 people have been left in a critical condition. So, our question we're asking is, have the police lost control of our streets? Joining us now is GB News presenter Patrick Christys, who thinks police have absolutely lost control, and the former police superintendent Leroy Logan, who feels they haven't. So, Patrick, tell us why you believe the police have lost control.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me absolutely no joy to say this. And by the way, I don't think this is entirely, in every case, the police's fault. But to answer your question, yes, they have lost control. Knife crime up 5% in England and Wales on last year, 22% up in London, a 19% increase in knife point robberies. If we move to the northeast now, we see that there's been a 500% increase in sexual crimes, a 6,000% increase. This is since 2014, by the way, in stalking and harassment cases. Shoplifting is through the roof. Why do you now need to go and ask a cashier behind the counter to get you some fabric softener? Well, it's because all the others have been nicked. There's been a perceived two-tier policing protest. Drugs are out of control, aren't they? And public confidence is at the lowest level. That was an independent watchdog that came out last year. Just to summarise that and how much I think they have lost control, there was a police station that closed in Streatham and was turned into a £1 million cannabis farm.
Right, well, Leroy, do you believe the police have lost control of the streets?
I don't believe they've lost control of the streets, and I don't think it's really reasonable to say that it's out of control. I mean, yes, crime is high, and it's in the wrong direction in many areas, and the police need to get a grip of it. But I also think that various crimes, they are predicated by people's circumstances. I'm not giving excuses for people carrying knives or going looting, but there's always causes behind these things. You know, it's not just being tough on crime, and I know about enforcement and the courts and the prison system, but it's also getting into the causes of it. We need to have really culturally competent type of policing, knowing where the feuds are happening, who are the problem families going into these conflicts, how people are starting to get together around going into shops and looting and all these sort of things. We need to recognise how social media has contributed to this, and it's got these sort of weird and wonderful collaborations of people coming together and believing they can just storm stores and everything like this. So it's not just about losing control. It's around we collectively as the public trying to support each other so that you don't have people running wild on the streets of London.
OK, Leroy, let's pass that back to Patrick now. Patrick, not necessarily all on the police. Yeah. This is a problem with society.
Yeah, I mean, unquestionably, it is a problem with society. I think we can't also underestimate the impact that inexplicable police cuts, coupled with rapid mass population growth, have had. I mean, I think that seems pretty obvious. And I don't think the police help themselves at times, though. And I know that these might be isolated incidents, but things like doing the Macarena at a gay pride event or twerking at Notting Hill Carnival, for example, or policing non-crime hate incidents online, I'm not sure that's really getting in amongst the more serious crimes, like stabbings, like gun crimes, like drugs as well. I think sometimes they are maybe afraid of the optics a bit too much. I know that there were certain issues around the BLM protests, I think more recently as well, when it comes to the pro-Palestine protests that we've seen. I think the appearance is at least maybe they are too worried about how this could be cut up. There have also been problems, I think, when it comes to undermining the respect of police officers, not least because they don't appear to always be that good at policing themselves. I could rattle off several examples. Wayne Couzens is probably the most obvious one as well. I think as well they're not always backed up by the higher-ups, are they, when it comes to things? I know firearms officers recently have felt incredibly hard done by and handed in quite a few of their weapons and will not be reapplying for the role. A perception that maybe there is a rush to litigation against their own.
Absolutely. Leroy, do the police sometimes project weakness? Patrick gave that example of how the protests, for example, a lot of people saying the police take a very, soft touch.
I'll agree that they haven't been consistent around policing a lot of the protests, especially around the issues of Gaza and Israel. And whereas they can be seen very heavy-handed when it comes to football events or something of a different nature. So, yeah, they need to be consistent. There needs to be that strong ethical leadership to ensure that they deploy the assets in an intelligence and a proportionate and reasonable way. We've got to ensure that our policing is consistent, whether you are a very privileged end of life or you're deprived in some way. There seems to be an inconsistency, and that's down to the leadership. But I know the majority of officers are doing an excellent job in very tough circumstances. As it's already been highlighted, austerity trashed community cops. It closed down the police stations. We've seen morale nosediving, lots of people leaving, not only just handing back their firearms, but they're actually leaving. And of course, the reputation was hit by Carrick and Cousins and all these other sexual predators. So the only way is up. So it really needs the real ethical leadership, not only at the top of the Met and other police services, but at the Home Office. When we had an overindulgent Home Secretary like Suella Braverman, etc., get involved in operational policing, that was the worst thing we needed.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, do you think we just need tougher police officers? Are they... have we got, some people say too many graduates, too much form filling and not enough tough,
Can I just say something? Yeah. I was a graduate and I wasn't stuffed on policing. So I hear this thing about graduates. I was a graduate and it actually helped me to be a more effective and objective officer. So please, I hate these stereotypes about too many graduates.
Okay, although, Leroy, that was back before universities turned down a peculiar path that they have in the last few years. But, Patrick, final word to you.
I think that actually there is a serious shout as to whether or not we should be paying police officers more to try to attract better ones and to try to make sure that more people are actually seeing it as a career choice. I do think that is an area to be had as well. I do also actually think that there needs to be an element of personal responsibility. It can't all be down to the police. I don't think a new youth centre would stop people stabbing each other in the streets a lot of the time, for example. I think there has to be a look at the breakdown in maybe the nuclear family as well, but not just police. But yes, I would like to see police officers perhaps a little bit less afraid and get more backing from politicians. There is a perception that perhaps some politicians are very quick to jump on things like whether it's police racism or whether it's police sexism or all of those things, all of which are bad, but I would like to see politicians coming out into bat, going over the top for our police officers more, and our police officers not being afraid to do things like more stop and search.
Well, there we go. What a fantastic discussion. Really, really interesting points on either side. Patrick, Leroy, thank you for your time.